such a day of celebration on Friday. I was there at the press conference. I know the plaintiff's attorney. I know Lee Johnson now. I was there at the closing arguments, and it was so exciting. It was such a good thing. And yes, this one little crack in the armor is just that, something that we can use to turn everything around.
Yeah!
Now, what happened was, it was a shot heard around the world. I was immediately called up by George Norrie, can I be on Coast to Coast Radio? And there was 3 million people, and I looked and there was on ABC News, and NBC News, and CBS, and Reuters, and et cetera, et cetera. I got called yesterday. Before I went to the plane, I was on national television in Russia, and national television BBC in the UK. When I landed, I was on international BBC. It is happening. People around the world are realizing that, well, first of all, they're celebrating that Monsanto is now vulnerable, but they're also realizing that Roundup causes cancer. And we have now the capacity to use that information because so many people now are just been hit with that information just this weekend. And it's still going around. I checked my last Facebook post that had like 150,000 views from Friday. It's really happening. So, my whole deal for the last 22 years was getting people to become aware of the health dangers of GMOs and Roundup, and then giving them one of 3 options. The first option is to stop using GMOs. The second is to pay, to help support our Institute for Responsible Technology. And the third was to become an activist. But a few years ago, I started talking to doctors who I had been giving lectures to in the medical conferences for years, who started not just prescribing non-GMO diets, but doing things to help people repair, to heal from the impacts of GMOs and Roundup. And I realized now I have a 4th action step. Now I can actually give people something else. But I'm not an expert at that. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but there are scientists out there are doctors out there that I can gather and show to my tribe and let it go viral, and then people can not only avoid GMOs and spraying of Roundup, but get better from it. So, yeah, this is big news, and it turns out I gave a talk at the Purium Conference 5 years ago, and I was talking about GMOs and Roundup, and a lot of Facebook posts said, oh, and Jeffrey Smith endorses Purium. No, I'm just talking about GMOs and Roundup. But my friend now, John and Kimberly, they signed me up. I said, fine, sign me up. And for years, they give me information. I said, no, it's not my job. My job is focusing on GMOs and Roundup, and thank you very much. I was the worst because I was not interested. It wasn't my job. So thank you for your patience. And then I was thinking about, okay, healing from GMOs and Roundup, and I was focusing on that, and I got a call from John and said, we have a product that reduces the amount of glyphosate in the urine by 74% without changing the diet. What? I said, can you say that again? He got my attention. Finally, you got my attention. So I said, I want to see all the science. I want to see all the information. I want to speak to the formulators. I want to speak to David. And we all got on the phone, and I asked the tough questions, and I said, okay, I will share your story. And so what happened was, at the end of last year, I did a little mini healing from GMOs with Maggie, my business partner, and it turns out we interviewed David and also Andre Naj, who was one of the formulators for Biomedic, and I asked the tough questions, and I said, I'm not endorsing this, but I have read the science, I have heard the clinical experience, and there's enough information for you to share with the people that are listening to me, because I'm excited about hearing this information and letting others make the choice. And so, I found out last week that I was in a club.
Sorry, Beth.
A 71K club? I don't know what that means. take it last night. Some people say, and he endorses purine. No, what I do is actually very different, but it works hand in hand because my job here is that I'm looking at all of you and saying, you are talking to people. You're talking to people about health. And now I can recruit you and empower you and arm you to talk more powerfully about GMOs and Roundup, which is my goal. So I want to do something which we haven't done before. We just did a major Healing from GMOs and Roundup series. 45,000 people registered, had 23 videos, and we just closed the card and it's not available to anyone. But after this, we're going to make it available because it includes this interview, and also the information about the health dangers, which we know actually inspires action. We know that. We have that evidence now. And so this is something that I'm going to invite you to participate in, so that if you would like to use the tools that work for us to get the information out, then it works for our mission is to get the information out far and wide to lots of people. So, I'll talk more about this at the end, but I need to arm you with information. I need to get you motivated about how dangerous GMOs are, and one way is a film that's going to come out this fall about families that just switched to organic and two autistic boys, no longer autistic, a chiropractic clinic, but 92 infertile couples on an organic diet. All of them have children. We had people that had cancer, skin conditions, depression, all sorts of things reversed when they switched to an organic diet. Was this a one-off? Was this an outlier? Actually, I asked audiences at 150 lectures, how many of you noticed a change when you switched to a non-GMO organic diet? All these hands went up. I said, okay, what problems got better? And they told me. And it was always a consistent thing. So what I did is I then surveyed 3,256 people who got rid of GMOs largely and switched to organic. And it turns out they got better from 28 different conditions. I published it in a peer-reviewed journal, and it shows clearly the same exact patterns that I found at the 150 lectures. Digestive disorders, number one. 85% of the people that got better from anything said they got better from digestive disorders, and significantly better. Then increased energy, and better weight management, and reduced brain fog, and allergies, and anxiety, and depression. The same list. And if you look, it's a significant increase. It's not just a minor increase. But this is not just a one-off. If you look at the pets that are switched to organic, if you look at the livestock that are switched to non-GMO, if you look at the animal feeding studies, and if you look at the epidemiological evidence, which we'll look at in a minute, it's this pattern. We see that there are problems with GMOs and Roundup that we can identify and link to these diseases. So, we know that the major GM crops, soy, corn, cotton, canola, sugar beets, and alfalfa, are all Roundup ready, engineered to be sprayed with Roundup and not die. And that has caused a massive increase of over 500 million pounds of Roundup use in the United States in the first 16 years. Now, let's just focus on Roundup. Its active ingredient is called glyphosate. Everyone pronounces it wrong. They always say glyphosate. It's glyphosate, or they say glyphosate. Glyphosate. So that's my first. I'm teaching you know glyphosate. Glyphosate. Okay. Don't take it in your. Just say it out there. Keep it far away. Don't take the energy of that in. All right. So Monsanto bragged for years that it blocks the shikimate pathway, and the plants have the shikimate pathway, and it kills it. But we don't. But it turns out our gut bacteria use the shikimate pathway to produce the neurotransmitters serotonin, melatonin, dopamine, which are important. They're the happy chemicals. So I just showed you the slide where more than half of the people that switched to a non-GMO organic diet got better from anxiety and depression and other mood problems. Here's an example. In our Healing from GMO series, Dr. Hyla Cass, who wrote 10 books, she talks about how this can change behavior, personality traits, and other ways that Monsanto's glyphosate robs us of nutrients that can even create antisocial or a social awkwardness, and or binging at night, binging ice cream at night. Did you know that it's to transport tryptophan past the blood-brain barrier, and that there's a way to get rid of that with a specific nutrient, and that all can be robbed by GMOs and Roundup? So we create the information that then can promote the action. Another one, it deletes minerals. You've all heard of chelation. You say, oh, I've got too many bad minerals, heavy metals. I need to chelate it out of my system. You put a molecule in there, it grabs the minerals and takes it out. Well, glyphosate grabs all the minerals and makes them unavailable. So it shuts down metabolic pathways that are needed for everything, that are needed for detoxification of the liver, so that all the other toxins in the environment become more toxic because they're not able to be ushered out of the body as easily through the liver. So we also have damage to the microvilli and suppressed digestive enzymes. What was interesting talking to David and Andre in the interview, and it's in the interview, is that they specifically formulated the product, and he'll talk about this, to repair the microvilli. The microvilli are like the shag carpets along the walls of the intestines that do the absorption of your nutrients. And people who have serious celiac disease have Berber carpet. All the shag is gone, and they have serious issues. That's what it is. That's all it is. It's just carpeting. So in the series, there were certain major players that came out that I learned are really fundamental in health. And the microbiome, as we'll talk about that in a minute, digestion is, leaky gut is, but turns out mitochondria is huge. I think it was Mercola in the series who said they took tissues from a preserved body that was, from an older person who was 90 years old, and someone who was younger. And the only difference they could find was the health of mitochondria, the amount in health. And mitochondria is linked to cancer. And glyphosate is a mitochondrial toxin. Mitochondria, we may have learned in high school, they just call it the energy centers. It's a lot more than that. But if you damage the energy centers, what will happen? You'll get tired. You'll have brain fog, because the brain uses 25% of the body's energy. And if you don't have energy, you get brain fog. So what was the number 2 improvement among the 3,256 people who were surveyed? Improved energy. And number 4, reduced brain fog. Very important. And in the Healing from GMO series, we have talked to experts about each of these things, experts in their area, and so there's greater understanding of the mechanics of how glyphosate is causing this damage. And we have birth defects, which is a horrible thing, especially right now in Argentina, where they spray Roundup by plane. And in one case, one area, the number of birth defects that it's going out has increased 70-fold. Endocrine disruptor. How many people like their hormones? Keep them close. It can disturb the balance between testosterone and estrogen. I was interviewing someone, a cardiologist for the film, who goes, that's important to have your balance of testosterone. So it defines who we are. And it's inside the series, people talk about the importance of hormones and the dangers that occur. Then it disrupts the cytochrome P450 enzymes, which are important for detoxification, etc. It's technical. And promotes cancer. It is a probable human carcinogen, a class 2A carcinogen. It was determined by the International Agency for Research on Cancer as such in 2015. And what was so exciting was, as soon as the lawsuit happened, Monsanto was forced to turn over millions of secret documents. I'm sitting in the green room before getting on the doctor's TV show with the lawyer that organized this. And he said, yeah, we filed the motion to release them, and they had 30 days to respond. And they forgot. And he said, we just looked at each other and said, should we ask the judge? No. And they just made them public. And they got a rebuking from the judge, but they made them public. And when that happened, we realized the reason why I was at the doctor's the second time is because when the World Health Organization declared it a carcinogen, they invited Monsanto's toxicologist, Donna Farmer, to be on to defend the chemical. And then they said, you know, maybe we should have someone to rebut. So they invited me by Skype to debate her. And so, you know, she was very media savvy at this point and knew exactly what to say, irrespective of what question was asked to her. And as she ended the show, she said, you know, I'm really very confident in this, not as a mother, but also I can back it up as a scientist. So when they made these millions of pages available, they took the best ones out, put them on the website of the lawyers. I Googled the right search for Donna Farmer, and there she was, saying to another person working at Monsanto in a private email, we can't say that Roundup doesn't cause cancer, because there's not enough research. There she was, ghostwriting an article, taking her name off of it, taking Monsanto's name off of it, and taking out the sentence which links glyphosate with miscarriages. And there she was in another memo saying, well, according to Donna and such, it's very plausible that the deaths in the study were dose-related. And another one, it looks like the tumor formulation, the tumor development came from the full formulation of the product, including the surfactant, which is technical, but it means basically that the Roundup may be far more dangerous than the glyphosate alone. So I called up the doctors and I said, Donna Farmer lied on television, and here's the evidence, and I'll send it to you. And they looked at it and said, okay, I think we'll do a 3 or 4 minute segment. So they contacted the lawyer, they contacted the lawyer's plaintiff. Next thing I know, we're on for the entire show, a full hour. And soon after, the state of California determined that glyphosate causes cancer as part of the toxicity. Then there's leaky gut. How many people have heard of leaky gut? Raise your hand. Okay, leaky gut is extremely important. If you break open the gaps between the cells, then undigested food particles can get into the bloodstream. They're treated as foreign invaders. The immune system will attack it. It's in a modern immune system. They all get out their iPhones. They take a picture of the attacking protein. They post it on their Facebook and say, all the other immune systems attack everything that looks like this. But it's not that modern. It uses an old iPhone. It's pixelated, so the immune system gets it wrong. They think, oh, that looks like it, and they attack the thyroid. Oh, that looks like it, and they attack the pancreas. They attack the microvilli. And that's autoimmune disease. It's because of leaky gut and old iPhones. And in the interviews that we're making available is Tom O'Brien, who has the autoimmune docu-series called Betrayed. He's one of the world's experts. He's the gluten guru also. And he talks about how gluten creates leaky gut every time you eat, and then it comes back. And every time you eat, it comes back. And then what happens when it gets weak? And he talks about that in depth. You get to hear about that. So leaky gut is linked to cancer, Alzheimer's, heart disease, autism, Parkinson's, inflammation, autoimmune disease, and allergies. And in the series, we have a product that shows in the microscope that it prevents the breaking up of the cells from gluten and glyphosate even together, or it puts them back together. Another one, microbiome. Unbelievable. The information that I got during this series, I am so glad we did this. Thank you, Maggie. If I was just thinking about it, if it weren't for you. The information about the microbiome is amazing. I was just reading the transcript from Dietrich Klinghardt, who talks about there's microbiome in the brain, and if you kill that, we get dumber. So maybe it's responsible. In fact, the human brain cells give off millions of biophotons per second, whereas a rat, 1 biophoton per minute. Could it be the microbiome? He talked about St. John's wort, that some of them work, some of them don't, but the ones that are less processed seem to work. Maybe it's not just the herbal constituents, maybe it's the microbiome that grows on the herb that causes the change. He said salad. We almost do not digest salad, maybe 5% of the nutrients, but the salad has microbiome on it. He talks about how there's this crosstalk between him and others, this crosstalk between the microbiome. 98% of the DNA in the body is microbiome. They have conversations. They have conversations using RNA. They have conversations using these carbon snowflakes. They have a very, very sophisticated situation. So the herbs that you're eating or promoting, they have this other element that you don't know. We have vitamins, we have minerals, we have phytonutrients, but it also has ways that their RNA from the plants program our cells. And what happens? Glyphosate comes in and it's an antibiotic. It kills the microbiome. It is designed, it is patented as an antibiotic. And so if you look at a 5,000-year-old man frozen in the tundra or whatever, he's got 20,000 different types of microbiome bacteria. Modern man, 500. And if you do fecal transplants, yes, it's true, I didn't do it, you can actually transfer the microbiome and create thinness where there was fatness, or fatness where there was thinness, or bring in diseases, or change entire ways of thinking and acting, because somehow we have this micro Jedi army called the microbiome that actually migrates to tumors in breast cancer to help it. They think, oh, it's an infection. They kill the microbiome, the tumor spreads. Zach Bush says, in the brain of Alzheimer's, there's a microbiome that goes there. There's a particular fungus. They think it's an infection, but it's there to protect the brain. We have all of these friends that we're killing with Roundup. So it was an amazing revelation for me. And one thing that the beneficial bacteria do in our guts is to keep suppressed the growth of the nasty stuff. So inside the guts of, where did I go? Oh, there you are. Inside the guts of cows, there's botulism now, because the botulism, the Clostridium botulinum bacteria is usually suppressed by another bacterium. But that bacterium is easily killed by glyphosate. They eat Roundup-ready crops, and now there's chronic botulism in lots and lots of cows. And there's an amazing story in this series, oh my God. This guy's walking around the dairy, Mike McNeil, and he sees that some of these cows have chronic botulism. And so he quietly mentions to the guy, this cow is going to not eat for a while, then it's going to eat a lot, and then it's going to die, and it's going to have a foamy mouth. And he goes, oh my God, how do you know that? He says, it happened already to 2 of my cows. He said, because it has chronic botulism, and I see you've been feeding this, and this particular thing has glyphosate in it. And I wouldn't drink that milk. And the guy turned white. I said, why not? He says, well, you can get that from the milk. I'll tell you a story here. It's going to be hard. He said, my grandchild, who's about 2 months old, is in the hospital.
Oh no.
And we fed her the milk. And he said, go to the hospital immediately and check for botulism. He gave a specific thing. He said, don't just stand there, go down. They're not going to check for it, it's rare. And he saved his life. So that's in the Healing from GMO series. Boy, they did get emotional at that point. We both were tearing up. It turns out that we also have damage to the liver. So in this case, you can see, what? Go back. Okay, this is the one. Okay, this is the one. Yeah, that's like I said, this is the one. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in rats that were fed glyphosate in the water supply. Now they calculated how much glyphosate per body weight per day. Tiny, high parts per trillion. Now the EPA says, oh, glyphosate is safe. We're allowing X amount in our water supply. How much? 437,000 times the amount that the rats consumed on a per body weight per day basis.
Oh my God.
So, part of the issue with glyphosate is that it's not just in Roundup Ready crops. It's also sprayed on non-GMO crops, like wheat, barley, oats, rye. Larry Boland, who does the testing, said owl, oats, wheat, legumes, the top scorers. Oats, the number one. Non-organic oats, they spray before harvest. It gets absorbed right into the oat and we eat it. Over 1,000 parts per billion. Wheat, sprayed 3 to 5 days before harvest. Lentils, mung beans. So it's out there. If you're not eating organic, you're being exposed. But even if you are eating organic, it's in the Midwest, it's in the rain. It's in the air. It's in some people's water. Fortunately, not most, but some. It is out there. It is in dogs. They touch it. We pet the dogs, and it gets absorbed through their paws. This guy talked about, he measured the glyphosate in the urine of humans and dogs, and the dogs were 50 times.
Oh.
And their cancer rate, according to Ty Bollinger, who interviewed me in The Truth About Pet Cancer, was 1 out of every 1.6 dogs get cancer. It is the most common of any mammal, highest degree of cancer. And we interviewed Dr. Barbara Boyle, who is Oprah's vet, and she talks about, this is amazing information, she puts the animals, dogs or cats, on a better diet the first thing. And then they see them in a few weeks, and 50 to 70% get better with nothing else. So you know the diet is driving the sickness. Here are some rats' livers that were fed Roundup Ready soybeans on the right and non-GMO soybeans on the left. And here are some testicles from rats that changed from pink to blue after eating genetically modified soybeans. I like to use this slide to take a long, slow drink of water.
To take a long slow drink. Good.
See, usually it's the women that pay a lot of attention to my slides, but this is designed for the other half. And we also have, this is Jim, we also have mice where they had damage to the young sperm cells. Damage to the young sperm cells, and also changes in the ovary and uterus and hormones of female rats. Now, I was speaking at the European Parliament many years ago with a group of scientists and experts, and Dr. Irina Ermakova from she was a senior researcher at the Russian Academy of Sciences. She gave me these slides. These are Russian-speaking rats. And they volunteered for a soy experiment. They were fed GM soy starting 2 weeks before they got pregnant, through pregnancy and lactation. And more than half of their babies died within 3 weeks, compared to only 10% of the offspring of the rats that ate normal soy. They were also smaller and could not reproduce. And there was another study done by another researcher at the Russian Academy of Sciences on hamsters. And they fed hamsters Roundup Ready soy for 3 generations. And also, there was a 4 or 5-fold increase in infant mortality. They grew much more slowly, and they had a condition of hair growing in their mouths, a birth defect of many of them. I have a picture of it. It's so disgusting, I'm not going to show you. You just have to, but I'm going to show you another disgusting slide, just because. Okay, so these are tumors on rats. I know, it's terrible. But I have to show you this. It's by Dr. Seralini. And I interviewed Dr. Seralini in this series, and he's like the world's leader in testing on GMOs and glyphosate. And what he did with this is, he tested rats that were fed GMO Roundup Ready corn that had been sprayed with Roundup, and another group was fed the corn that had never been sprayed with Roundup, and another group was fed Roundup in the water without the corn. All 3 groups had multiple massive tumors, they died earlier, and they had organ damage. So the question is it Roundup or is it GMO? Yes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that, everyone knows about Seralini's research. He was then attacked by the industry, and it was quite interesting. He fought it back, he won a libel suit, but now he's struggling. So it turns out that I interviewed him about detoxification, because who knew? He took a particular product and applied it to human cells and found that it would detox, but with a certain number of herbs. If you add too many herbs, it doesn't work. And he also found it with rats, so he's now into the detox. He's also doing healing from GMOs and Roundup. So I'm going to show you something. We're going to go through it very, very quickly, okay? And we're going to start with this one slide. Okay, this is the inflammatory bowel disease in the United States, in the vertical bars, and that red line is the amount of Roundup or glyphosate-based herbicides sprayed onto GMO soy and corn. Now, this is called correlation. You can't, if you just look at this in isolation, with no other factors, it's very weak science. It's of interest. But when you have evidence of how glyphosate might cause inflammation, and you have, and I've been to the doctor's offices, and I've interviewed the patients, and they get better from inflammatory bowel when they switch their diet. Same with the pigs, same with the cows, same with the dogs, same with the cats. Now when you look at this, it becomes part of a bigger picture. So I'm going to go through many different types of diseases, and all you need to do is look at the slope of the lines, and I will read you the names of the diseases. Okay, this is inflammatory bowel. Okay, this is deaths due to intestinal infection. This is peritonitis, which is an inflammatory digestive disorder. This is bile duct and liver cancer. There's a trend line, and this is marked not only against glyphosate, but also the percentage of corn and soy in the United States that's genetically engineered. Here's another cancer, kidney and pelvic cancer, urinary and bladder cancer, thyroid cancer, deaths due to acute myeloid leukemia, age-adjusted renal failure, which is kidney failure. Here's acute kidney injury. There's hepatitis C. This is autism. Now, if this were a perfect line, it would have a value, an R value of 1. The R value is 0.9972. We can spend a whole talk about the links here, which I'm not. Diabetes, stroke deaths, dementia, deaths from senile dementia, deaths from Alzheimer's, deaths from Parkinson's, deaths from obesity, deaths due to high blood pressure, anemia, insomnia, sleep disorders, celiac disease, congenital birth defects, disorders of lipoprotein metabolism, anxiety, we talked about that, suicide by overdose, schizophrenia, ADHD. And it's not just GMOs, as we said, non-GMOs too. There's a period of digesting this information that's happening right now. With 300 million pounds of glyphosate sprayed every year in the United States, the single most popular herbicide may be responsible for the rash of incredible number of diseases and deaths. I interviewed Michelle Perro in this series, and I say, what happened when GMOs were introduced? What happened to the children that you were treating? And it all changed. And she explains the new diseases, and you can take a look here for some of them. So, I am sharing this information with you, not just to change your eating habits, but because you have the capacity to change thousands and thousands of people from the people that you contact. The first video in the series that's going to be available outside on the table, and Maggie and I will be there, the first video is a more in-depth discussion than what you just heard. It's an hour-long discussion. It goes more into detail, it goes into BT toxin, etc., and it prepares someone to have the same energy about changing your life as you have right now, and I will show you. Raise your hand if you are now more determined to avoid GMOs and Roundup than ever before. So this is what I do. What I do is I gather the information out there and put it in a way that motivates people to make a change. And that's what I would like you to use, if you would like. This is what we've put together. And fortunately, you have another motivation. Because it's not just to change people's diet. Because we have an interview in there, and a bonus interview also. We have David and Andre as part of it. We have a bonus with just David talking about other superfoods to help us get healthy, stay healthy, and purify and repair. Because you can use that for your other purpose of bringing the how to heal from GMOs. And by the way, I have something that reduces the preclinical trial. I love this fact. I love this fact that it's 74% reduction of glyphosate in the urine without changing your diet.
Woo!
And a 3/4 reduction in a CRP, the marker of inflammation, which just is conspicuously the same 3/4. So I'm not going to make a judgment because I shrink from coming up. I represent scientists, and they, they speak. Converging lines of evidence suggest that I might be chilly. They don't say this causes this. The doctors I talk to say GMOs cause this, glyphosate causes this. They say that. But the scientists don't. So I'm going to let David, who's going to come up here in a few minutes, he'll talk to you about biomimetic. That's his job. My job is to create those hands that you just saw. And now also, because you're a special breed, because you're enthusiastic, you're educated, you're excited about training and teaching others, I'm going to give you the opportunity to use what we have created for that. So, as I said, we have not done this before. We actually had a discount for everyone as part of the series, where we brought it down to $97 instead of up to $200 and something. And we said we're closing the cart. That was about 2 weeks ago or 10 days ago. And so we're saying, okay,